commit, and I can click on that and it'll appear in the log. If I click on this one, it'll highlight that commit. If I right click on one, I can say annotate the previous one. So if I want to keep on looking back through the changes in this file to really find out at what point a change was made and why it was made, like look at the commit message and find out information, this is a great way of doing it. This is basically doing a git blame. So if I want to close that, I can right click and say close annotations. Now, as far as pushing and pulling is concerned, as I showed before, this drop down, you can say update, which kind of does a pull. I personally prefer to just do fetches. I don't like the concept of pulling it because a pull is a fetch and a merge both together. Then quite often people do that and then it kind of makes erroneous merge commits, which you don't need. I won't get into that now, but I personally prefer doing a fetch beforehand so I can see what my log is at. Has it pulled down someone else's changes, for example? Do I need to do a rebase? And you can do like shift and then fetch, or you can do the shortcut that's against it, Alt, Shift and K. So if I do Alt, Shift and K, you can see at the bottom it's doing a fetch. No one else has committed, so it's not pulled anything through. As far as pushing is concerned, again, you can do push, Control, Shift and K. We saw this briefly before when we had the to-do comment. So this tells you, and you can look through what the changes are, and you can double click and you can view what the change was, or can view all of the changes. And then I can push. If I've done like a rebase or interactive rebase or something, so let's push that. So that's now pushed my feature branch. I can now see that on main, there's actually another commit by Bob. Again, ignore the fact it says my name, this is just a demo, but imagine this is by someone else. Or there might be a bunch of commits that other people have done that's now gone into main since I started my work. So I want to rebase against this. It's as simple as right-clicking on the branch you want to rebase against, so origin main, and choosing rebase, so rebasing my branch against origin main. So that's now rebased on top of Bob's commit. But we can see I've got like the two different versions, the one that's been pushed already, which had that branch divergence, and my new version, which has rebased out that branch divergence. So I just now need to do a force push. So if I do a push, Control, Shift and K. So if I try and do it now, then it's going to reject it. So I'm going to cancel that because it doesn't give me an option there to force push. And I'll do Control, Shift, K again, and I can do this drop down and force push. And that's done. So obviously in Git, force push don't do on the main branch. You can do it with a feature branch, that's fine, as long as you're not collaborating with someone else on that feature branch. So now I've not got this branch divergence, and it's a nice linear history, and I'm up to date. So the next thing I want to do, I've done my work, and I've pushed the feature branch, it's up to date with the latest. I want to create a pull request. So this project is on GitHub, so I'm going to use GitHub pull requests, and here on the left we can see we've got a pull request pane. And again, ... it might be in here if you've got it hidden. So I'm going to click this plus to create a new one. Now, if I had to push my feature branch, it would give a warning here saying you've not got a remote version of your feature branch, but it will give you the option when you create the pull request to do it for you. But I've already pushed, so it's not done that. And you can see it's here, you've got this arrow, so it's saying my feature branch going to main, which is what we want. So let's create the pull request. I was a bit trigger happy clicking there. I should have pointed out that around here, before I clicked create pull request, there was an option to set the PR title and a description as well. But I've now got a pull request. We can see up here, because it's on GitHub, there's a hyperlink to open it up on GitHub. I can view the timeline. So it shows the information about this pull request. And if you've got AI enabled, the AI assistant subscription, then it'll even do an AI summary of your changes. And then if I close this, then because it's filtering by me, if I get rid of that, we can see my PR listed because it's not actually assigned to me. A couple of other small tips before we wrap up. If you're in the log and you click over here, double click on one of the commits, one of the files in it, let's find something that's a diff. This one. So if I double click here, it shows the diff. If I want to actually open the file, I can press F4 here and that opens the source file. In the same way as I'm not sure if I've mentioned this so far in the course, but if you go to like a project and press F4, it goes to the source of that project, the CS proj. So it's a similar kind of thing. If I want to click down here and view the actual source, not a diff, then I can F4. Another small tip is you've got, as well as this log pane, you've got the console pane. If you click here, it shows the actual raw Git commands that were called. So that's quite handy. If you do want to use external tooling for diffs, for example, if you go to the settings and where is this? This is in tools, I think, diff and merge. Then you can tell it to enable external diff tools. So WinMerge, for example, if I now save that settings, go back to the log, go to one of the files, if I double click now, that's going to open up the diff in WinMerge. So you've got the choice of using external tools. So I've probably shown you enough for one video, but as you can see, Rider has very, very deep and powerful Git integration, and I've used a lot of Git GUIs in the command line. I've done a lot in Git, and I've got to say I really love this as a Git GUI. They've done a really good job. So the last video was very long, so I'm going to keep this one very short. So Rider has this concept of local history, which has actually saved me a ton of time before when I thought I lost lots of work, but Rider saved the day with its local history. So what this does is Rider keeps track of your changes. So this might be useful if you don't use source control, but you should do really, or if you've made too many changes in between commits and you've lost something. So maybe you've made too many changes that undo can't save you, but you've not done a commit, then this can save the day. So basically, if you right click on a file, you've got this local history here. If you right click somewhere in the Solution Explorer, you've got local history. If you right click on a project, you've got it somewhere there. If you right click on a solution, it's there. So you can do this at various different levels. Let's just use this file as an example though. If I right click and go to local history and go to show history, then this pops up. Now ignore the blah, I'll explain that in a second. But this is basically different changes. So things like if you delete a file or make a significant change, Rider will keep track of it. So I can click through and see what the changes are. We can see when we've done things related to Git that it's also tracking that. And this example, as we saw, is just in the scope of this one file. There's various different viewing options. So you can say unified viewer or side by side, whichever you prefer. And yeah, various different options here, like show line numbers or that kind of thing in this diff view. You can also right click on a change and say create a patch. So that creates a patch file. So for example, if I do that one and show an Explorer, then we can see that here. I could then share that with someone if I wanted. So local history is designed for personal use if you need to get back some of your own changes, but you can export it if you want as a patch. So if I drag this into the window, we get an option to apply the patch. So you could share that with a colleague if you needed to. I mentioned about this blah before, so basically let me close this. If you right click on a file and go to local history, you can say put label, and then you can type in a label just to give that a more meaningful description, that point in time. And the last thing I want to mention about this is that the default retention period is 5 days. If you go to settings, so Control Alt and S, it's in advanced settings, but if we just search for local history here, and then go down to advanced, it's this one here. So duration of stored changes in local history. So you can change this if you want more or less. If you want to disable local history altogether, you can set that to 0. So that marks the end of this module. In the next module, we're going to delve into the world of testing.